everybody, this is Dolores Jensen. I'm the art teacher at Berea Academy. And I got to thinking that maybe a drawing skills video would be something that would be helpful. Now, a lot of my drawing students already know a lot of these things, but a review is always good. And even if you're not one of my drawing students, drawing skills are always important. And drawing is just a nice hobby. It's very easy. It's not that expensive. You get a sketch pad, a set of pencils, eraser, and off you go. So let me give you some beginning tips, and then I'll probably be doing a second video too to give you more information. So the first thing you need to know is the tools of the trade. So what I have displayed here is some of the basics, well, all of the basics. First of all, I'm going to tell you about the mistake fixers, often called erasers. So our typical eraser creates shavings. See that? And it does a good job, these little white erasers, and they also come in pink. And but they create these shavings. And so our instinct is to do this. Now, the pencil I used isn't very heavy on graphite, so it's not smearing. But if I did that here, I would smear that graphite. The other thing is that when I smear like that, it also introduces the oils on my hands to the paper, which likes to repel the graphite. So it's just not a great idea to use the kind of eraser that creates shavings. The other bad thing about them is you can see how dirty they get. If I erase, sometimes I might leave that mark on it. So if you have to use one of these, you want to make sure that it's got a clean edge, and the way to clean it is simply to take a piece of scrap paper and erase to clean off the edge. So that's those. They have their place. You're going to use them from time to time because sometimes you've got to use a heavy-duty eraser. This is the preferred eraser. It's called a kneaded eraser. It's Kneaded, kneading like bread. It's squishy, stretchy. It's a lot of fun. This is how they come. They come in a little square. This is a half of one, but they come wrapped in plastic. It's about $3 for a big hunk. I break it into a smaller piece. These will get dirty. They will get to the point where they're almost black, and they'll be kind of sticky. So once they get to that point, you just toss them. You never want to mix the new with the old because it's just going to contaminate the new eraser, so just toss it. The other thing these do, though, is there is no eraser shredder, what are those anyway? Crumbs. Whatever they are, you know what I'm talking about. But I can erase. Now notice this may not take the darker marks off, but there are no shavings. Well, they're not shavings either, are they? I don't know what they are. My brain is on freeze right now. The other nice thing about these is they can lighten an area just by stamping it. The other thing they can do is you can put them into a point and just come in and erase in a very specific spot. So let's say you need to erase out a highlight. This is your tool. So this is very, very handy. The other thing they're good for is when you're drawing and you're not sure about whether you like it or not, you can just sit and stretch it and play with it. It is fun to do, but again, the oils on your hands are going to get in the eraser, and over time your eraser is going to wear out sooner, but you know, it's still fun, so I do it anyway. These are not very expensive. Buy the good ones. Don't get the Artist Loft brand. I get a 50-50 result on that. Sometimes I'll buy them, and when you stretch like this, they should stay together. They shouldn't just fall into crumbs. And if they do, the eraser has not been produced correctly, or it's been frozen is my theory, because I've gotten some like that. So anyway, it's only $2.99 for the good brand. So go for the name brand, not the Artist Loft brand or the store brand. Okay, so, and then this is a neat eraser too. It's an eraser stick, and it too can help you get into some tinier areas, let you really get something out. Again, it has the shavings. Another good tool to have on your hand, or have on hand, is a paintbrush. Just brush away those shavings. But if you're like me, it's instinct to just take your hand and swipe. So a paintbrush is a great idea, but whether or not you're going to grab it and use it is just habit. So this is actually better. Okay, so the pencils. Pencils come in different, I say lead, but it's graphite weights. So you get your technical pencils. These are the hardest graphite you can buy. They break quickly, easily if you press too hard. They are only going to get so dark. You can get fairly dark with them, but you get a nice crisp line. I use these either for very fine details because they are always sharp, or for the beginning sketching because it's loosely done, and these you should be able to erase. If you're pressing hard enough that you snap that tip, you're pressing too hard. So you want to start lightly. You want to sketch. I mean, you probably can't even see that on my paper, but when I start a drawing, I'll sketch really lightly. So a 4H is the hardest. I think you can buy 6H too. So there's 4H. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little bit of a shade of each pencil and then set it aside. So there's the 4H. And you'll start seeing the difference as I go. 2H. And you can't see pressure, but I'm pressing the same amount and gradually letting up on the pressure. That's how you shade. So that's the 2H. This is a woodless graphite, my absolute favorite to use. You get a lot of graphite tip. They do break easily, so you have to protect them in some sort of padded case so that you don't ruin them. H is next in the lineup. So basically, as the graphite gets a little softer, F, you can see it's getting a little darker. As the graphite gets softer, it can leave more graphite behind on your paper. So the advantage of that then is you can make darker marks. How do you have an interesting graphite drawing when there's no color? You make the darkest mark that your darkest pencil will make all the way to the white of the paper. That's just the general rule of thumb. Can you see how these are getting darker? Like I'm barely touching down here and it's leaving quite a bit. This is a 6. Look how dark that is. But also, if I'm trying to get details, this is going to get a soft tip quickly because it's so soft it wears down. The H's are going to hold their point so I can get details. And then this is the 8B. See how much darker that is? I mean, black, black. I can never get that black with this 4H. It's going to be a dark gray, but it's never, no matter how hard I press, going to be black. So that's the difference between the pencils. You have to start with the light color when you start your drawing and gradually go to the darker. This is the other thing to remember. Artists are not logical. Very important. The H's stand for hard. Makes sense, right? Hard graphite. It makes a lighter mark, right? F stands for fine, which I don't know why we have to have that in there because these make a fine line too. So, you know, there you go, the logic of an artist. A B, I racked my brain one day because I thought, why can't I remember what B stands for? I finally had to Google it. It stands for black. So yeah, I know logic is hard, soft, so these should be S's. No, it stands for black because, again, artists, logic, yeah. So B stands for black, H stands for hard. Just, that's the way it is. Don't question it. These are graphite sticks. These are fun. I wrote the numbers over here, 2B, 4B, 6B. They are basically the same thing, but in stick. So you can come in and do a larger shading area. So this was a 2B, very messy. And here's our 6B. So it can get quite a bit darker. Now there is a little bit of variance. I mean, I could get a 6B of one product and maybe it won't make quite as dark a mark. One time I had a 4B that made the black of an 8B. Never could figure out why. Maybe it was labeled wrong. So you'll know your pencils. The other thing I have to say about the pencils is, and I hate to knock brands, but there are some brands that are just not good quality. The Artist Loft, the only reason I have these is because they came free because I spent a certain amount at Michael's. They are terrible. The wood chews up. Quite often the lead is crooked, and when you sharpen, you'll have a big piece of wood. A lot of times the graphite is broken inside, so you sharpen and the hunk comes out, and then you sharpen again. They are cheap, and they are cheaply made. They are not worth your money. In fact, even getting them free, I was so frustrated. I wish I had not taken the free option. So I suggest you do not buy those. It's worth it to get a good set and get something to protect them in. The last thing I'm going to tell you about in this video is shady dudes. These guys help you smooth out your shading. Now that is a personal preference. It is not a requirement. I don't always do it, but I have students and I've seen people who like their drawings to be almost photographic, and they are gorgeous. It's just, what style do you like? So the shady dude, you could use your finger, but the shady, see the difference? That shade, this little guy really does, and they come in different sizes, so you can get into smaller areas. So it's just rolled up paper. I've tried making them. They're really hard to make. These, you get a whole pack of them for like $2 or $3. So they're not very expensive either. So they're worth the money. So that's it for this video. I will come back and give you another video on me actually drawing something. Won't that be fun? See you later.